Hello. It would appear that it is time again. It's that time of year. Well, technically, the time of year was a month ago, but here I am, as always, a month late. So, welcome back to Doosh Gaming. It's me, Bryce, talking about my top 10 of this year. Or, sorry, last year. Once again, late on these things. I always am. That's fine. So last year, man. We didn't. What did we do last year? We did some stuff. We played some things. I think the most notable things that we finished Dark Souls 2 last year. Something that I'm very happy about. Very pleased with. Also, we did some minor stuff. We did some Enderall. I tried to get farther than that. We played some GTFO. Don't know if we'll do that in the future. And we also did some Planetary Annihilation just for fun. So that was good. This year we have some more things coming out. So before I get to the top 10, I'm going to cover. This is going to be a mash of what's happening this year and my top 10 of last year. So first off, things that are happening this year. We plan on doing a couple things. I usually say this every year, that we're going to do more stuff. It doesn't end up happening usually. This time, I know it's going to happen because we've already started. Starting with, I've got 2 playthroughs that we're doing currently. One of which is the continuation of our Dark Souls journey. We started playing Dark Souls 1, me and Todd. So far, going pretty well. We're about to enter Blighttown, so that's going to be hell. And the other thing we're doing right now is that 4 of us are playing through Zombie Army Trilogy, which right now we're making progress in. Very fun. Can't wait to get that out. And other than that, there's, assuming we get those done in a reasonable time, then some other stuff might come about, but I won't say what they are just yet because I'm not really sure what they're going to be. But yeah. So, basically, that's the general gist of what's going to happen this year in terms of Let's Plays and stuff. But yeah, so now, let's talk about games. Let's talk about what I played last year. Fuck, I played, despite the activity on the channel being not very high, I did play a lot of games last year, like a fuckload. God, I played a lot. Jesus. It was a bit of a struggle trying to figure out what to put in the top 10 because there were a lot of games I liked. And there were some games that I had to remind myself about because I forgot them because I played them so early in the year last year that I just forgot they existed. But turns out, luckily I remembered some of them and they made it onto the list. But even through all the struggling of trying to figure out what I liked and what I didn't like and what I liked best out of stuff I already liked and enjoyed. This is the list that came about. So let's do it. So number 10, My Friend Pedro. Not a long game. That's my only complaint about it, is that it's not very long, but it is some of the most fun I've had with a game like that in a long time. It's just a short description. It's a game where you're this guy who wakes up in a basement with like a gimp mask, and your only friend in the world is a floating, talking banana that speaks to you, and he tells you that you need to get out of here, out of this basement that you wake up in, and then the rest of the game you're on this journey to fucking do Matrix style kickflips and acrobatic tricks while also shooting the shit out of gangsters and people. And fuck, it's fun. It's simple. It's one of those games where it's simple to control but hard to master. Because a lot of it feels like you're in the Matrix. There's slow-mo, there's you jumping through the air while double-wielding pistols and firing them at the same time. And then you can like split your aim to shoot in one direction and shoot in the other with the other gun you have, and then they throw in some other mechanics. There's this level where you're in like a dream world, and you're like fucking. It's a great game. The whole game feels like you're tripping on acid the whole time, but fuck, it's a lot of fun. There's not too much depth in terms of story. There is a story. There is a story to it, and the ending, your friend Pedro, you have to kill him, sadly. I should have also mentioned that there are spoilers in this. I'm going to talk about it very honestly, so if I mention spoilers, I'm going to give this warning now, and probably before the video, but anyway. But yeah, for being like a 3-hour game, God, it made me sad at the end when you had to kill Pedro. I really like Pedro as a character. A fucking talking banana. How could you not get attached to that as a character? And then you had to kill him at the end, and then he took off his peel, and he was like a weird brain creature. But yeah, man, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of great fun. Once again, not very long. That's probably my only complaint about it. It's a very short game. It took me like 3 hours to beat. And even though they add a lot of things like modifiers to make it add replayability to it, I couldn't bring myself to play through it again. But even with that in mind, it's still, I think, deserving of a top 10 spot. I liked it enough to where I think it deserves that. So it's more like an honorable mention, but it still fits, I think. It fits. Alright, number 9 is a game called Consortium. Pretty sure this game came out a few years ago by now, and it does have a sequel in the works, but the Consortium, I feel like the best way to describe it is like, imagine that you're playing through, like the feeling of, it feels like you're playing through an episode of Star Trek Next Generation, is what it feels like to me. It's not quite on that same level of sci-fi, but it is still a really cool sci-fi world. The idea is that there's some fourth wall breaking, where when you enter the game, it says, you know, entering, fuck, I don't even remember the lines, but the idea is that you're, you know, it's, fuck, how do I explain this? So you enter your character, he's nameless, nothing's known about him, and you're taken on as this, like, as a sort of high-ranking officer on this semi-spaceship. It's not a spaceship because it only flies in atmosphere of planet Earth. But it's like a futuristic Earth where you know, technology is super advanced now. Once again, you're on this sort of in-atmosphere plane, which the idea of this plane is like it's like a Earth patrol. It goes around and it patrols Earth for terrorist activities and stuff like that, and you're like the muscle. And the game is heavily driven by dialogue and your choices that you make. There's some murder mystery elements going on the plane. Someone dies, you have to figure out who killed them, and it's not handed to you at all. You gotta look for clues, you gotta talk to people. And there is some action in the game. There is some combat, which is questionable, I think. I did not enjoy the combat very much. I think the weapons are well designed, but I don't know, I didn't feel like I had a lot of weight or impact. What I liked about the game the most is the story. I think it's really good. If you like stories and you like dialogue-driven games, it's for you. And it's really interesting because it's really nice that it's a mystery that doesn't hand itself to you. It doesn't give you all the answers. You really gotta dig in and find out what the fuck's going on. And then a lot more is revealed to you at the end. That some weird, like, fourth wall breaking shit is happening. And then the end is left on a cliffhanger where you jump out of the plane to go on to this tower, and then now there's a sequel in early access called Consortium: The Tower, which I do own, but I want to wait to play it till it's finished. So yeah, Consortium, fuck, it's really good. I like the characters. Some of them are forgettable. It's neat. I like it. I don't know. I feel like I don't have a lot to say about it. It's hard to describe it for me. I think it's, just take a look at it. I mean, I'll try and put some gameplay up to so that you can see what's going on with it. Yeah, so it's Consortium at number 9. Actually, you know what? I will say one more thing about Consortium. The reason why it's at number 9 is that even though it feels like sort of a RPG in a sense, what limits it to number 9 is that it's all kept in one space on the ship that you're on the whole time, which is fine. I still think it's a great murder mystery, investigation, dialogue game, story-driven thing, and it works fine for that situation. But I do like seeing some variety, and you don't see any in terms of your environment. The environment does change, which is very appreciated. They put a lot of time and effort in the way you can go about routes and stuff, the way you can fuck with characters, and the way you can do things. But yeah, so Consortium, number 9. I'll move on now. Number 8, They Are Billions. I noticed that when I was really excited when the campaign was announced for this, and when it came out, I was enjoying it a lot. I noticed a lot of people gave it flack when it first came out. I don't really understand why. Maybe that's just me being blind to the reasons that people were mentioning why it wasn't so good, but I still liked it a lot. Felt just like the regular game, except you had new maps to fuck with. You had actual objectives to focus on. There's some weird like isometric like RPG elements almost. You had to take heroes through dungeons and stuff. I thought it was really neat. And even ignoring the campaign, which by the way, another thing I like about the campaign, it feels very Warhammer-esque. All hail the fucking Emperor! You know, you know, it felt very much like that, but which I love, fucking love Warhammer. Both 40k and fantasy. But ignoring, even without the campaign, the base game, when it was in early access, that didn't have the campaign, was still fucking great. Being able to construct, you know, your giant mega fortress, trying to defend from waves and waves after zombies is so much fun. It's a mixture of two things I like a lot. Horde destroying and city building. I love both of those things. And building a city like that, it's like isolated and trying to defend itself on its last legs. It's a lot of fun. And when you finally get to the point to where you're like, I've beaten this, like I have successfully made a city that will withstand time and billions of zombies, like that moment of pride is so satisfying, and I love it. I even my last game I played, where I was worried about a side that wasn't strong enough. It was like one thickness wall, and it didn't have great turrets. So I was like, okay, from here on out, I'm devoting all my resources to building up that wall for when the mega 100-day wave comes. And that's what I did. And all I did was I just constructed like a 4 thickness wall with turrets in the center of it, and it did the job. It fucked shit up, and I was super happy about it. It looked kind of ugly, but hey, it worked. It was just a giant brick that went on for a couple miles, and I was super proud of that. Yeah, There Are Billions. It's a lot of fun. It's a bit stressful at times, but man, if you like tower defense, city building, stuff like that, it's the game. It is the game. It's a lot of fun. Alright, so number 7 is a game that I liked a lot. It had story, it had exploration, it had bosses even. Not that they were all very good, but some of them were really nice. It's called Vampire. Vampyr. Spelled incorrectly, I get it, but on purpose, of course. I imagine. Surely. So this game, did it come out in 2017? It came out a couple of years ago, I'm pretty sure. I'm a bit late to the party. A lot of these games I'm late to. But I finally got around to it, and goddamn. I love Victorian England settings. And this time with vampires and werewolves. I try to ignore the sort of what comes to mind as, you know, Twilight. But, you know, I don't know why that even comes to mind. I've never even seen those films. But when you see vampires and wolves and you're aware of what Twilight is, you can't help but think about it sometimes. But in the case of Vampire, it's actually good. It's a good combination. So yeah, the idea is that you're a doctor who comes to a place where, you know, well actually, I mean, the way it starts out is that, you know, there's a disease going around. People are dying. It's not great. And, you know, the game starts out with you waking up in a pit of bodies. You were someone who died, but you didn't quite die entirely because you wake up as a vampire. And when you wake up in this pit of bodies, there's someone who's looking for you. It's your sister. And by accident, as a vampire, you accidentally fucking, you know, eat her. Just because you're starving of blood, and just unconsciously, you just don't even recognize her, and you just go for it. So the game starts you out with this tragedy that you've committed, and you're escaping from the local authorities after that. And then it throws you into this place where there's this sort of institute that's being headed by a doctor who's aware of what you are. But since your character is also a doctor, he'd rather have your help as a doctor. And so you're taken in, and you now have this sanctuary. And the game from here it's like this institute is your sanctuary. It's not even safe, but it is where you stay and where you base yourself out of. And this game is very exploration heavy, very RPG heavy. There's a lot of quest elements and you can upgrade your weapons, which range from melee. Like the combat, I don't want to say this, but it's very much like you would imagine it in Souls, or I guess more like Bloodborne, actually, maybe. It's a bit strange. I don't like saying that or making that comparison ever because it's been done so many times in an obnoxious way. But I say it here just because it's the only other thing I have to compare with that style of combat, where you have stamina you have to work with, and it's melee combat. You do have firearms at times, but your main weapon is your melee, along with you biting people. And, you do get superpowers though, with blood-related stuff. Being a vampire, like blood spears and fucking blood mist and fucking it's cool. You can get fade in the shadows and teleport. There's a lot of cool things you can do. But the game centers around not only this epidemic that you're trying to solve as a doctor, but you're trying to solve why more vampires are showing up as a vampire. You want to stop this from happening. And who made you a vampire, more specifically? You're trying to figure that out. And once again, it's a pretty good mystery. There's a lot of choices you have to make in terms of characters that you kill. Because as a vampire, you need to eat on blood. And because of that, there are major characters, and this is a big part of the game, is that you have the choice with certain characters whether or not you want to eat them to satisfy your hunger. Specifically, what it does mechanically, when you eat people, when you eat specific, like, important characters, it levels you up. Essentially, it's the only way you can level up, by getting that, like, XP. There are other ways you can get levels, but it is super slow and grindy. So the main way you're going to do it, probably, is by eating people. But doing that comes at a cost. You miss out on that person's quest, their quest line, potentially. Or the other big major risk is that it could destroy a district. So the game is divided in, I think, to 5 districts. If you kill too many people in a district, it will collapse into chaos and turn into a really hostile area. So there's a risk and reward system by trying to level up and get more powers and stuff. It's not easy. It's quite the balancing act, especially with your morals and your emotions and choices, trying to figure out what's right and what's wrong, what should I do, how can I strategize with this. It's really interesting, and it's a lot of fun. And once again, the sort of setting of gloomy, dark Victorian England, it's really, really nice. So, number 6, or that's number 7, I'm sorry. Number 6, before I name this game, I want to say I'm a fucking doofus. I did say earlier how there were a couple games I forgot that existed because I played them so early this year, and I forgot that they should go on the list. This is one of those games, and people are gonna fucking roast me for this, but it's The Outer Worlds. The Outer Worlds. How could I fucking forget this game? This game was awesome. I mean, it was everything that that we anticipated it to be. It was an awesome sci-fi RPG semi-open world. I want to say it's semi-open world because, it's not. It's hard to do a complete open world in a space game, but for what they do, I think it's a great space to explore. So The Outer Worlds, I do really like it. I like how, it's hard to explain. It's Obsidian, all right. They've done a good job pretty much always. Spotlight in Vegas will always stay in my mind as their greatest work, even against this game. This game, though, does have a lot of great moments. Specifically speaking, once again, with dialogue. I binged this game about 3 times over the course of like 2 weeks, trying all sorts of different ways to get a different ending. First time I played honestly to what I would have done in a situation, so through that I got the good ending. Second time I played with the I just murdered everyone, essentially. Just everyone died, just to see what would happen, because there's no essential NPCs in this game except for what's his face. And then in the third playthrough, I played as the super dumb character. I did the dumb ending. Specifically twice. There's two ways of dumb ending you can do. You can do the dumb ending where you fly the ship yourself into the sun, or you can actually get to the ending, and instead of accepting the doctor's proposition to become the new administrator, like governor of the area, you have the option of a response as, "Man, I could go for some ice cream right now," and then he's like, "Oh, okay," and then the game cutscene is literally the narrator is sort of remarking on, and as you sat there, sitting there, eating your ice cream, your frozen treat, you realized it was all worth it. All the murders, all the immoral decisions you made, it was all worth it. And then the game just ends. I mean, not many games do that, not acknowledge that shit, and that's great. It's phenomenal that it does that. So that's a big example of why it does a really great job at being an RPG that gives you choice. And the choices are, there's a lot of ways you can approach a situation in the Outer Worlds. I think the beginning town of Sweetwater is the best example of this, because what you can do for a start is that, you know, there's two main factions that you can help or hinder. That's the town of Sweetwater and their sort of corporate-driven ideals, or you can help out sort of the hippie group, the hippie secessionists that want to live independently. And so the main thing is that they want you to switch power to one or the other from the abandoned generator plant. And Sweetwater wants you to take the power away from the independent people because they want them to be convinced to come back. The independent people want the power to be driven to them so that they can support an independent ideal. So, the reason why you have to choose here is because you need to get a hold of a thing to power your ship to leave, because Sweetwater is essentially the tutorial planet. So, in my first playthrough, I decided that even though I like both, I decided that I killed the administrator of Sweetwater because I thought he was an asshole. But then I switched the power. So then I went to the Independents and they were like, "Oh, thank you for killing this guy. He was a dick." But then I was like, I don't really like the Independents either, because I don't know, like something rubbed me the wrong way about it. So then I went and switched the power to go back to Sweetwater. So when I went to get the power core from the Independents, I asked, like, you know, the first thing you have to do before you get the power core is you have to talk to the leader of that place, which is like an old lady who runs a garden. And she's like, and her response is fairly unique to if you do it just a direct one way or the other. She's like, "What kind of agent of chaos are you? You fucking, first you help us and then you fucking destroy our lives." I thought that was really great. But another reason why I will never help the Independents again if I play through it again is that when I asked, you can ask the old lady how she's able to grow her plants on a place that has infertile soil. And the secret, once again spoilers here, is that she fucking grinds up human corpses to act as fertilizer. And from that moment I just instantly killed her, and I was like, nope, that is too fucked. There is no, I'm not supporting that. So I went back, and then all the people I could have helped basically dead except for the townspeople. And then I took my followers and I left. So yeah, I mean, but there are some other ways you can go about that situation, but that is the particular way I went about it. And yeah, just it's a game of choice, and there's a lot of choices. The gameplay is a lot of fun. The guns have a lot of weight to them, it feels. Overall, it's a really, really solid game. Not the longest, as some people have proven you can speedrun it in like 12 minutes, but it is a really good game that if you want to take your time through it, you can spend about a good 24 hours in, I'd imagine. Hopefully DLC comes out for it in the future. There's some like world spaces I feel are lackluster, and there's planets that you can't go to, but you can see. that are in the solar system that I'd very much like to go to in the future. So hopefully they give us that option later on. I'd be very happy with that. All right, we're halfway through. Number 5, the Council. So the Council. So just to preface, I like games, and I've said this already in some of the previous games. I like story. I like story-driven stuff that's well done, it's well written, has good characters, and dialogue that doesn't feel too cheesy. It feels sort of realistic to the situation that they're presenting. Such as Telltale games. I like a lot of their games. I liked the Walking Dead series they made. I loved The Wolf Among Us, and I'm so happy that a second one will be coming out, and it will probably be showing up on this list within the next couple of years. I like a lot of their games because they do a really good job at presenting really well-written characters and stories and choices. Once again, choice. I like choice-driven stories. I think the biggest example of my favorites is Dragon Age Origins. Is my favorite example of a game that provides choice for a player in a story. Which I think I should make a video about that at some point about Dragon Age Origins. But for now, we're talking about the Council. The Council I played fairly recently, a couple months ago, and it's another game that advertised a mystery that did not hold your hand. You had to figure out stuff for yourself. Had puzzles, had mystery, had a sort of lying and sort of bluff calling system within the dialogue. You can't trust anyone, that sort of thing. I like the sound of it very much. And it turns out I did like it. Once again, it's sort of a Victorian England era. And the idea is that there's this person who's on an island, very, very obscure person, but a lot of high society people know about him, and he runs a secret society. And the idea is that every now and then he will gather all these great leaders of the world together to discuss world politics. And so in this game, there's a lot of people who show up. Napoleon Bonaparte, George Washington, not the Pope himself, but like a hand of the Pope. There's some other people. So the idea is that, you know, you're in this place and you're trying to figure out, like, you come here as a young man who's a new entry to one of the secret societies. I think called the Golden Order, which is ran by your mother. And you come here after figuring out that she came here and disappeared, so now you're trying to find your mother while you're on this island for a few days during the conference. So you're looking for clues and asking people, and once again, you're trying to figure out stuff. It's another mystery that you need to ask people about what's going on, and it becomes more in-depth than just a disappearance of your mother. Once again, spoilers here, about halfway through the game after you've found your mother, and figured out that she's been hiding away on the island and she's injured and she's a little bit panicked, that apparently demons exist. They are a real thing, apparently. And that the guy who's leading this council of people is one of them, and he's very influential and very persuasive. And then you learn later on that it becomes a very complicated situation. You learn that you're his son, turns out, and that your mother is actually your sister, who is his daughter as well. And so the goal becomes, you need to kill this guy or run away, because he's a fucking demon, very clearly. He wants the world to go in a direction that is not favorable to humanity. So yeah, it becomes a very complex situation, almost silly. But even so, I enjoyed it. And the ending I got, I would say, is probably a very bad ending. I'm planning on playing through it again to try and get a better ending. The ending I got was that I got my soul devoured by the demon. So so yeah, it didn't go very well. But overall, yeah, it was a very good game, and I like mystery. What can I say? I really like mystery and choice-driven games, and that's another example of something that I had a lot of fun with. Once again, also really well-designed characters. They didn't have too many characters. They just had enough to where you can get to know them, memorize them, and learn to like them or trust them, or not to trust them. So yeah, we're gonna jump out of story-driven for a second and choice-driven, and we're gonna jump into some fantasy Total War shit. Some Warhammer 2 at number 4. I love Warhammer. I loved the first game. I had a couple campaigns in the first game with my friend Patrick, and we played as the dwarves and we conquered the world, and it was great. Warhammer 2 came along. I finally bought it along with all the DLC, and there's more DLC coming out even. And I've had some really fun campaigns with it so far. I played as the Bretonians, and I conquered the world that way. Not quite the entire world, obviously, but like the old world. That was a lot of fun. I've tried playing as the Dread Fleet a couple times, and fuck. Necrofex Colossi are some of the most fun units in terms of like missile artillery to play with. I love it so much. There's so much to Warhammer 2. There's so much depth in terms of units to control, so many strategies to employ. I mean, if you like strategy, it's a grand strategy game in the most earnest of meanings, where even though it gives you like specific goals to achieve. Whenever I play Warhammer, I always aspire to dominate the world in the end. I always want to do that. That's always in my mind. Because that feels like the only goal to really aspire to. If you do anything less, well, it's not nearly as great as dominating the entire planet. It's too much fun. And of course you have your little mini conquests in the meantime, like, oh, now I'm leading my conquest to dominate and pacify the barbarian orcs in the south, and sending my colonies to fucking destroy the lizardmen threat in the west. And fuck, it's so good. No matter what faction you play, it's a lot of fun. And I can't help but love watching battles of ratmen fire nuclear missiles at knights in armor with tanks and stuff. Oh man, Warhammer is one of the coolest fucking fantasy universes as well. It's too cool not to enjoy, not to fucking nerd out on. And I can't wait for the third one, by the way, because I want the entire world map. In Warhammer 2, we get most of it. We get the old world, which is basically Europe. We get Africa for the most part. We get South and North America for the most part. We got the Elven continent. But I really want the East, and I hope Warhammer 3 provides on that. I hope it gives us the East with the Chaos Dwarves and the fucking like Eastern tribals and the fucking and like the ogres that are over there. I want the East real bad. And I realize a campaign for that would take forever to dominate the world. It already takes forever to take over the world in Warhammer 2. It's insane how long it takes, but I want it nonetheless. I want it so bad. So yeah, Warhammer 2 at number 4. So at number 3 is a sequel to a game that I played a lot of when it first came out. And now that the sequel has come out and that it's a true successor in every sense of the word, that has innovated so successfully, and that has been a massive success that I'm super happy that it's become. It's Risk of Rain 2. It's got a couple elements that combine that I like, which is a roguelike sense and third-person shooting combat. So Risk of Rain 1 had a lot of characters to choose from that had a lot of different abilities, and the idea is that you go through different stages, picking up different items, until you reach the final boss in the first one. In the second one, which is in early access currently, but typically I don't like including early access titles, but this has been updated so heavily by this point. It's very close to full release, which is coming in May, I believe. Spring at the very least. It's very complete as is. My only thing that I really want at this point is I want it there to be a final boss like there was in the first game. The first game had a final boss that was super difficult and super fun, and when you beat him, very satisfying. In Risk of Rain 2, at least for now, when you play it, the run you do just goes forever until you die. And by going through each run, you unlock new items, you unlock new characters, you complete challenges to unlock new loadouts for your characters you already unlocked, which was not in the first game, which I'm super impressed and happy with. So you can, if you like and are practiced to the playstyle of a certain character, well, now you can try different ways of playing that character and see how that fits to what you want to do. And It's super cool, and they brought back a lot of characters from the first game, like the alien Acrid. They brought back the mercenary, which is your base character, which makes sense. They brought back the or sorry, not the mercenary, the commando. The mercenary is a character they did bring back, but he's a melee focused character. They added some new characters like the fucking loader, which is like a person, you're in a power loader and you just punch the shit out of stuff, which is amazing. That character's a lot of fun. They brought in a character that's like a weird robot symbiosis with a plant thing, so you do these weird attacks that hurt you when you use them, but when they hit stuff successfully, it heals you, so it's a weird risk and reward playstyle for that one. And they've added a bunch of new stuff, and the more items that they add, and the more bosses they add, the more areas they add, as the happier I'm becoming with it. It's super great. It's a Risk of Rain 2. If you haven't played it yet, I suggest play it. Plus, you can play it with friends. That's always a great thing when you can play it with friends, up to 4 people. It's a lot of fun. So number 2. Now I'm a big fan of Souls-likes, games I take inspiration from FromSoft titles. I'm a huge fan of FromSoft. I'm in the middle of finally getting through Sekiro at this moment, even. I'm about 2/3 of the way through the game, and I'm having a lot of fun with it. And I'm super excited for Elden Ring when that's coming out. But I also like the 2D iterations, like Metrovanias. And I know that Metrovanias can't really be compared to that kind of style because, once again, it's 2D and 3D, and that's different entirely. And there's platforming. There's not usually platforming in those kinds of games. And Metrovania, but they do both have usually have a focus on exploration and boss killing. And number 2, Sundered, does that very well. So Sundered is a very interesting game. You play as a silent protagonist who sort of who's like lost in the desert, and you fall through the sand like a quicksand pit into this weird, like almost technological facility. It's strange, and there's this weird talking crystal that talks to you, who, from the inspirations of the game, that it's very eldritch and very like kind of Lovecraftian inspired in some areas. You can only assume that this weird talking crystal is a weird eldritch evil god who wants your soul, and rightly so it does. So he tells you that in order to save your soul, you need to go and get these like crystal pieces from 3 parts of the map and kill these things. And so you got the south, you got the west, and you got the east. These are the 3 sections you go to. I think all in all, there's 4 main bosses in the game. There are mini bosses you can fight, which are like upgraded versions of the regular enemies. But there are 4 major bosses of the game. So the first area you go to, which is the south of the map, is like it's like abandoned technological facilities. It's hard to even say what they were for. But you go through platforming all over the place, and the game is interesting because there's no enemy placements. The enemies attack you in waves randomly, and they will just attack you at random, and you get swarmed, and it's up to you to defend them off with the skills and the abilities that you learn throughout the game. And so the interesting mechanic, I think, that makes the game really interesting is with the abilities you learn. Like most Metrovanias, you learn abilities as time goes on, as you get farther in the game, that will help you with certain obstacles that will get in your way for that specific area. And that it works the same way in this game, where you find an ability that gives you either double jump, or you can climb walls, or like a dash ability that's like blink, or there's even a fucking like some assault, like that, some like offensive abilities you can learn as well. And there's all these different abilities you can learn, and it's not the abilities by themselves that makes it interesting, but you can, with a certain like material, it's like the crystals that you get from defeating certain bosses and stuff. If you use those, you can corrupt your abilities into making them like super eldritch powers that become crazy. So like one of the like a laser beam ability that you get turns into the fucking purple eldritch death laser. Your double jump turns into like a crazy tentacle jump that does attacks. One of them, like your wall climb, turns from a temporary wall climb to like you can permanently like crawl through walls and stuff. It is really cool. And the interesting about that is that depending on whether or not you decide to corrupt your abilities or to destroy the crystals for money or experience, that will determine the ending. If you corrupt your abilities, you get the corrupted ending, which is basically the bad ending. If you decide not to, you get the better ending, which I have not experienced yet. But I can say that even though I got the corrupted ending for corrupting my powers, it was worth it. Having those badass abilities like that, that was fucking cool. Like, I would take that any day. It was so fun playing around with fucking death lasers and tentacles and stuff. Fuck, it was so cool. That sounds really weird, me saying that I like playing with tentacles, but we'll move on from that. So anyway, but the environments are also really varied as well. So like I said, the south is like this abandoned technological facility. The west is like an eldritch cave system with all these sort of horrific, like unimaginable things over there. And then the east area is like this sort of divine, like a very cool architecturally designed tower system that's been like something out of fantasy. It's really cool. And each area has their own set of enemies that are unique to them and have their own bosses that are unique to them. So, and once again, the game isn't flooded with bosses. It has mini bosses that are upgraded designs of their sort of regular enemy counterparts. But the bosses are very unique, very large, and very difficult to fight, and a lot of fun. Very well designed, and just a really cool. There's like a weird skeleton robot. There's a weird fucking like corrupted Buddha monk. And I can't remember for the life of me what the eastern boss was, but I'll try and think of what it was. And then the final boss of the game is the crystal that you were talking to the whole time. Is, like I said, it's an eldritch god horror thing that you end up fighting at the end. And his boss is super fucking hard. He's like a weird Egyptian mummy tomb thing that comes out of a weird hole. Once again, this is weird the way I'm wording this, but it's a lot of fun. This game, the platforming mixed with the combat all together, it's super fun. So yeah, Sundered, number 2. I love this game a lot. And finally, at number 1, it's hard to say. This is gonna be weird to gush over for me. So I'm not the biggest fan of anime. All right, let me preface this for number 1. There are some animes I like, and most of anime I think is trash. In the case of number 1, like I don't even like anime games. If there's any anime I'm gonna like, anime related stuff, it's gonna be in the form of shows, anime shows. So anime games for me are typically a turnoff because most of them seem not good. They're trash. They're just trying to get your money so that you can jerk off to something. That's basically porn usually on Steam. You'll see that a lot. So I ignore all that. But this is an RPG. This is a JRPG. The reason I bought it was because I thought, well, why the fuck not? Maybe I like it, maybe I don't. And even though the reviews are overwhelming, or not overwhelming, but like positive because of the fact that it's probably all anime fans. But, I'll try it anyway. And then turns out, 48 hours later, that I fucking love the game. And the reason it's number 1 is because it's probably the most unique gaming experience I've had all year. And it invoked some really weird emotions out of me. And it is called Ni no Kuni 2 Revenant Kingdom. That is my number 1 for this year. Some anime weeb shit that I ended up falling in love with. And for weird reasons. This game, for me, it's entirely gameplay. I love the gameplay. It's very unique. I like the sort of hack and slash combat with enemies that you find in this giant open world. And I love... Yeah, the combat. I like the combat. I like how there's just a lot to do. Not only is there sort of one-on-one, you and a team fight giant monsters and shit, with some really fun bosses like giant death worms, fucking giant birds, there's a lot of cool bosses in the game. So the environments are really colorful. The textures for everything make everything look super realistic, even though your characters are very cartoonish in the face. Um, and then once again, unique gameplay experience. I said that, and that's because there's so many different ways you can play. So like I said, there's the one-on-one, take your team in, fight monsters kind of combat with melee weapons and stuff, and magic powers. There's a weird like strategy combat that gameplay that reminds me of Total War, where you take like armies in and fight other armies in shit over a territory, and it's like on the world map too. You fight on the world map, and that to me is really cool. There's a city building aspect to the game where after you're like a quarter through the game, you find your city, your new kingdom, and then you start building it with resources that you find. And that's super crazy, and it's super fun. Like, there's a lot of fun in doing it, just watching the city grow and be built. It's just, yeah, fuck, there's so much to do in this game. There's a lot of side quests to do, there's a lot of main quests to do, there's a lot of areas to see and experience. Like, there's the environments, because the idea is that it's a whole world to explore, so there's a lot of different environments, there's a lot of variety of environments that you get to see, you get to experience a lot of different enemy types you get to face, with different abilities and different ways you have to tackle them. And different bosses as well that are super cinematic and super cool to fight. Basically, like, this is a lot to do, and it kept me entertained for 48 fucking hours. And I technically haven't even done all the stuff that's in the game. There's DLC to it that I haven't gone through. It's crazy. So the visuals are super pleasing. The music is extremely good. I love the music to this game. Basically, like, there's a point in the game where you can travel the world super easily in an airship. And when you do this, there's a theme song to the airship, and it's super nice and orchestral and very pleasing. If I had I'll even put it in this fucking video. And if I had the option to do that the whole game, and I did it whenever I could, because that music is so stuck in my head now, and it's so beautiful. And hearing that music while you're flying through the air and seeing this world from above in all its glory and flying around it with all these vibrant colors and this beautiful world design. Fuck, I could do it for hours. It's so gorgeous. It like I said, it evokes some weird emotions in me. It makes me want to tear up and enjoy it because it's so pretty to listen to the music, and that combined with the other elements. And this is just for fucking flying an airship, which is just for fast travel. That's all that is. But it's like my favorite part of the game. So yeah, and like I said, there's a lot of cool environments, like weird technological tree cities. There's a cool underwater, like, Atlantis section. There's there's some classic fantasy forests with fairies and weird mushrooms and shit. There's a desert, or not really a desert, but like a canyon. Oh, there is a desert actually. There's a canyon. There's plains. There's, all the classic fantasy stuff, but it's all really well done. Here's my only gripe with the game. And this is what my gripe with a lot of anime stuff. And this is where it lacks. So here's me after gushing for all the good stuff. Let's talk about some of the poor stuff. And this is the only real bad thing I don't like about the game. It's the story. The story and the characters. The characters are really bland. I feel no emotion towards the characters at all. Because they're so dull and so bland. There's not a whole lot going for them. It feels like a really, really bland anime, the story, and you can't really get invested into it. The premise is cool, to a point. So there's this kid who was a prince and a king of his own kingdom, but then got ousted after a coup took place, and now he's off to find a new kingdom, and he's being helped by other people. To get to this point, and eventually he has the idea that he wants to unite the world in a single kingdom. That in itself is cool. What's not cool is that he wants to do this because he wants a world without peace, and he wants it to be full of love. That to me is dumb, because it's unrealistic. And like I said before, I like fictional worlds that are crazy and have cheesy ideas even, as long as they're realistic to the circumstances that they're surrounded by. So I don't mind an idea of where I want to unite a world to be united under the same banner, right, for the same purpose. But for peace and love, and that just comes off as naive and really dumb. And he repeats this so many fucking times. He's just a naive kid, and I can't get invested into his character. The other like main character you play as, I mean you can play as a number of characters you get into your party, but like the other main character that you see the beginning perspective from is like a dude, and this is the beginning cutscene, and this is really weird. He's like the president of a modern democratic nation. It gets bombed. All right, he's in a limo, gets bombed, and then he's like dying in nuclear fallout, and then he gets teleported to a fantasy world. That is some of the dumbest shit. Like in front of this kid, and he's like, "Where the fuck am I? Oh, I'm young again," even though I was like a president of a country in the middle of my 40s. And now here I am in front of this weird child who's like a furry, half furry. And now I'm just gonna be like, okay, this is a thing. I'm gonna help this kid on his journey to do some stupid, naive shit. And then that's it. That's just, and then you just accept it for the rest of the game. It's super. It's like I can't. How do I take that seriously? I can't. So yeah, that's the only weakness to this game, is that the story is weak and the characters are weak. In the end of the game, though, you do achieve the goal of uniting the world by defeating this ancient evil that is awoken. You unite everyone to go fight it, you kill it, come back, and then the ending of the game is that everyone's united and everyone's happy. Yeah, that's it, really. I was still very satisfied at the end that, you know, because after all that time taken, I got through all the trials and tribulations that it took to get there with my party members. And even though I didn't like the characters themselves, I got attached to their presence. I liked them being there because they were there for me the whole time. They were helping me out, fighting these things, fighting all these monsters and shit, and getting all this stuff done. So in that sense, I was nostalgic for them because of them being there the whole time, but not because of their characters. Because their characters were dull. But other than that, everything about this game, except for this characters and story, is great. Everything other than that is fantastic, and I loved that. And I loved everything else about it. Those are the only weak points, and those weak points weren't enough to stop me from putting it at #1. So I think that speaks a lot about how this game mechanically succeeded in a lot of ways. Artistically as well. So yeah, I mean, just it's a fantastic game. I haven't played the first game. I do plan on playing the first game, though, which is now on Steam, because I do plan... I want to know if it's as good. If it is as good, you'll find out by it being on next year's top 10. I don't think this is the kind of game I'd want to put on the channel, because I don't feel like it's the right game for it. But Ni no Kuni 2 Remnant Kingdom, even if... I will say this, even if you're like me and you don't like anime that much, try this game. Not for the story, not for the characters even, but for the environments, for the gameplay. I would advise giving it a try. I would wait on sale for it, because it is a bit expensive. But there's a lot to do. If you want something to keep you busy for a long time, this is definitely a game for that. So yeah, and with that, this concludes the top 10 of 2019. What a great year for games. There's a lot of good games, and there's going to be a lot more good games coming out this year I'm super excited for. Such as the new FromSoft title, Elden Ring. There's some others I can't remember at the moment. Ader is coming out this year. Some other stuff. I need to remind myself of what's coming out. But yeah, so that's been my top 10. I've been Bryce. This has been Doosh Gaming. Thank you for listening. I hope that maybe this enlightened some people on some games they never played. Hopefully you go out of your way to try some of these games if you haven't played them yet. Try them out for yourself. Hope you like them. If not, you know, well, if you have played them already, then that's good. Good man. Good job. And I hope to see you guys this year with new Let's Plays with Dark Souls 1, with Todd and 4 of us playing Zombie Army Trilogy, fighting Nazi zombies and Zombie Hitler and all that. And I'll see you guys on the flip side. So this has been Bryce from Doosh Gaming. Thank you for listening, and see you later.